Our top story: on his first trip to a Muslim country since taking office, new U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry met with Turkish leaders for talks on the civil war in neighboring Syria. Kerry is in the Turkish capital, Ankara. On Saturday, he will move on to other countries in the Middle East. His visit to Turkey was overshadowed by comments made by Turkish leaders calling Zionism a crime against humanity. Kerry rebuked the Prime Minister and said he found the remarks, quote, objectionable. Joining me now to talk more about his visit is Barbara Slavin, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council's South Asia Center. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Well, as we reported there, this is Kerry's first visit to a Muslim country, and this has become a pretty public spat. Is it something he could have avoided?
Well, I think the question is whether it's something Prime Minister Erdogan could have avoided. My experience with the Turkish Prime Minister is that he tends to get rather emotional, and sometimes he says things that are, in a Western context, simply not acceptable, and that's what happened. And Kerry was put in a position where he really had to respond to this. I think the White House has also responded to it. To call Zionism a crime against humanity is an absolutely absurd and certainly very objectionable statement to make. So Kerry had to do this.
I'm wondering, could there be a greater impact on what is happening right now? Because the United States, as well as other Western countries, see Turkey very much as that bridge between the West and the Middle East, Muslim countries in the Middle East. Will it hurt that effort?
No, I don't think so. The United States and Turkey have so much that they have to talk about. Everything from Iran to Syria to the Arab Spring, and Turkey is an absolutely pivotal country. And although this was an unfortunate remark by Erdogan, it's not going to change those fundamental facts. And I'm sure that after Kerry said what he had to say as the Secretary of State from the United States, he went on to talk about those specific issues with Erdogan.
You know, one of the main purposes of this visit, of course, is to formulate some kind of U.S. response to what is going on in neighboring Syria. Now, the U.S. has announced humanitarian aid for the Syrian rebels, things like medicines, food, etc., but they're saying, well, basically, we want arms. Does it seem to you that the U.S. hasn't really got a policy on this?
No, I think that we see a kind of burden sharing going on. The Saudis and others are providing weapons. The Europeans are providing other kinds of so-called non-lethal aid, but things like body armor and night vision goggles and so on. The United States is being very careful. I think there's a huge concern, frankly, after the experience that the United States had in Afghanistan some years ago, that you can provide sophisticated weaponry and it winds up in the hands of people who become your adversaries. So there is a real reluctance, especially to give things like shoulder-fired missiles that can be used against airplanes. We really don't know who is going to come out on top in Syria. At the same time, the Obama administration wants to cultivate relationships with some of these people in the hope that it can have a relationship with whoever comes out on top in Syria after Assad falls.
But the fact that you say that the United States doesn't know who's going to come out on top means that they have very little control over this.
That's exactly why they're not providing more advanced weaponry. Also, another factor in this, and I've written about it, is that the Israelis are not eager to see the United States give sophisticated weaponry to the Syrian rebels, because these rebels now are fighting the Assad regime, but someday they might turn around and fight Israel.
What about a role for Russia in this?
Well, Russia is key, and the hope is that certainly John Kerry is expending a lot of effort cultivating Mr. Lavrov, and just today, I believe, President Obama had a long conversation with President Putin in Russia. If this is going to be resolved in the near future, if it's going to be resolved at all, the Russians have to put pressure on Assad to give up his post.
Barbara Slavin, we have to leave it there. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.